guys, good morning, welcome back to the channel. Something a little bit special for you today. 3 years ago I made a Spitfire made by MinimumRC. Today I've got another Spitfire made by MinimumRC. This is their latest one obviously, and it's a little bit different, a little bit special, so let's open the box, see what's in there. There's a little screwdriver and scalpel. Essential items if you haven't got them. Now this is the full kit with the airborne pack and radio equipment. So in here I can see servos, battery, receiver, and a little charger if you haven't got one for 1S battery. Oh wow, didn't realise it was geared. Oh actually no, the other one was direct drive, this is geared. And a 3D printed spinner by the look of it, and lots of plywood parts and lots of hardware parts. What's different about this one is it actually has retracts. I don't know how they work, but they're in there. Exciting stuff. And also on this one actually has a moulded cockpit. I don't know if the fuselage will be rounded or not, but that's a Spitfire cockpit if ever I've seen. Oh, blazing. That's cool. It's incredibly well wrapped. I mean, everything is so well protected and boxed. Oh yeah, look at that. It's a high mark, something in the double figures. Look at that. That's quite a chunky fuselage, isn't it? And the wings. Very nice. Now, as usual with MinimumRC models, the build instructions are on the MinimumRC website, so I'll get that up in a minute and download them, and then we can make a start. The first thing it tells you is that there's two sorts of glue included with the kit. There isn't. The UFO glue is this, and that's for the foam parts, and then you've got 502 glue, which is essentially super glue. Mine isn't included, so I have some Yoo-hoo port, which is identical glue, foam glue, and wood super glue. Sometimes it's easier to actually cut it out from the back actually, then you can see where the tabs are. Okie doke. These are the components, and I need the motor as well, get that out in a minute. Assemble the wooden frame. The tight fits are good, of course. I make it slightly thinner. It's up to you. Just taking off those square edges. Doesn't matter, there isn't a top or bottom for this, so I'm going to mount it. That might just push in it down like that. So that goes like that on one side. Now all I've got to do is get the other side in and there at the same time. So line all up, line that up, and push it on. Make sure it's completely in and flush. You've got that really superb little construction there. So that's going to be like that, and that hangs down underneath at the dihedral facing up in nice and tight. So again, you want to get this square 2V structure, but before I glue any of that, I just want to offer up the motor. So I'm going to go back to step 2. Be very aware that these wires where they come out the back of the motor is the high stress spot, so don't go stressing those too much. If they break, you've had it. That's going to slide. I've got to put the cog on. There's little brass tubes there, they're the axles for the wheels, so don't lose those. So the cog has to push on the motor. Is there any way round? is, I think there's a little shoulder on the cog, and I think that faces the motor. It's a tight fit, but it does go on. Again, I'm not going to push on those wires, just going to push on the back plate of the motor. Now the motor sits in here. Again, it's probably a push type fit all the way forward till it engages with that cog there. Just going to push on the body of the plastic there. Has engaged though, this is the main thing. Okay, so this is what you're looking to get. You don't want to rush with this model. It's going to take you a few hours, and pleasant hours, and I've built quite a few of these MinimumRC models now, so before I put that in, I think I'll just glue this up actually. So let's just glue that at 90 degrees. Got a little pipette on here. Now I'm going to do the same on this joints, making sure that these are square and upright. I'll be right back. I'm just taking off the leading edge of that just to make sliding that nylon motor mount on a little bit easier. Goes like that, and that hopefully will slide on. Yeah, it's starting to go. Again, you've got to be careful what you can't just push on things, because you're going to break things. But push on, bit each side, bit at a time. Nearly there. They do two other models in the series with retracts, P51 and the Japanese Tony. Okay, so that is how it goes. Now I'm just going to wind this lead back up a minute, keep it out of mischief and harm's way. I don't think it would hurt to put a small dob of CA on that, but I really can't see it going anywhere at all. But okay, that is then the first step complete. From previous experience, I can tell you that the 4 servos mount here, okay? These 2 front servos mount from the bottom, and the screws go in from the bottom. These 2 servos mount from the bottom, but they face up. Okay, so be very aware of that. But if you study the picture on step 3, you will see what I'm talking about. And whilst it might look like I'm building this model fluently, I can assure you I'm editing it quite severely, and putting cutting out all the ums and oohs. Okay, so this servo, as I said, mounts that way round and up from the bottom, and the screws go in from the bottom. These servos mount, as you can see in the picture when you study it. Anyone can look at the plans, by the way. You don't need to buy a model. They go like that and screwed in from the bottom. If you don't do it this way round and get it correct, then the holes in the side of the fuselage won't line up. Basically, it's going to be securing all of these electrical components and testing it before you start building up the sides, because none of this is accessible at all once the model's assembled. So obviously all the radio equipment has to be tested and checked for working. Okay, servos are fitted, and I'm just about to glue in the little bit with the magnet. Little tip when you're doing up the servos, I forgot actually they supply a screwdriver for doing up the little screws. I use mine. But anyway, it might not happen with this one actually, because you'll have less torque, but be very careful. 2 points. One, when you put the servo mounting screws in, make sure they're vertical because of the fact that because some of the holes are close to the edge of the wood, they can easily go sideways, and because it won't actually be screwing into anything, so make sure it's vertical. And the other thing is, be very careful how you do up the top screws. It's very easy to over tighten them and then they'll just turn. So 2 little things to be careful of there, and that probably wouldn't have happened if I used a screwdriver. So the retract servo is this one here. You get one of the cross control arms and just cut off two of the arms and put it in. I put it in at the angle they show, but I don't know, I haven't centered the servos yet, so I might have to change all of those. We'll see. That one was lined up, perhaps I knocked it. So the next job was to fish out one of the magnets and put it into the holder. I pushed it down good and hard to make sure it's flush. And the other thing I'm going to do now is just to put some CA on the back of it before I glue it into place here. It's a pretty hard fit, so I don't think it's going to come out, but it won't hurt to run some CA in there. Spread it about. It is a magnet, so it's going to stick to stuff. Okay, that'll be fine. So then that goes in there facing that way, and you have to make sure that that is 90 degrees to the wing mount. If it's too low, then the magnet won't stick on to, let's just have a bit of wood there, the magnet won't stick on to its corresponding part very well. So 90 degrees, and we'll just, I think it might go forward a bit actually. I have cleaned it out, filed it slightly just to help it in on the edges, and connect the receiver to the servos, secure the receiver with Velcro, power it on, bind it, neutral the servos. I've selected the DSM2 receiver, although it doesn't say DSM2 on the packet. MARX42D 5 channel. So hopefully it will bind with my transmitter. So the illustration on the instructions, step 13 this is, clearly show how it all goes together. And I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. While I connect all this up, I'm going to charge the battery. 260 milliamp hour battery. Let's just see if there's any power in it. Hopefully there's a little bit. 3.84, so that's not fully charged. This is the charger, I think it is, so you plug that into a USB socket and plug the battery in. You've got a little charger there. Lead for the battery looks quite long, which is nice. I've got to tidy all these leads up, plug the motor into the receiver out there, and I'll tell you what I think I might do actually is to check it all before I even start assembling it all. So I'm going to do that, and when I've got something to show you bound up and that, I'll come back to you and we'll see how we're getting on. Right, so there's all the servos moving. Aileron, elevator, rudder, retracts, that one there, got it on a switch, got it on a 5-second slow, and lastly motor. Okay. One thing worth mentioning is, because I don't want either of these two wires to break off the board by moving a battery in and out, what I normally do is just CA these wires to a part of the woodwork to prevent any breakage. There's a picture of the receiver, the aerial facing backwards, the throttle thing facing forwards, connection. I've got elevator there, aileron there, retracts on this front one here, and rudder on that front one. Okay, I'm going to tidy up all the wires and I'll be back to you very soon. Cheers guys. I've tied the wires up with the little cable tie supplied. It's not as neat as the one on the screen, but it'll keep things out of the way, I'm sure. The aileron servo was slightly reluctant to move. It was all running well, wasn't it? And then it stopped. So what I did, I just loosened the screw just ever so slightly, and it's working fine. And I screwed it back up again, and it was, well, I pinched it slightly, and it was working fine. But I wasn't happy that if that servo should pack up, being the aileron servo. So I switched it with the rudder servo, and if the rudder packs up, it's no big deal. So just in case. I've had lots of these servos. I've only ever had one that actually jammed and melted a bit. So, you know, they're not impervious to failing, but I've had a lot. Now I've only had one fail, so not too bad. The receiver sticks to the bottom of that servo with a bit of double-sided Velcro, which is supplied, which is rather neat. So there we are. That's the clutch assembly tested, complete and running. So now I can get on with the next step, which is the fuselage. Great. Cut down fairly tight to the fuselage. You don't want any little nodules sticking out really. Is to score down these lines, just these, I think, using the supplied screwdriver. So this is what allows you to crease the fuselage sides into a bit of a curve. So don't go too mad with this, and go lightly at the ends, because you'll actually go right through. Just press gently and lighten up at the end, and then you'll find that you can bend the fuselage side quite nicely in the required direction, and that's part of the curve. Do this one. Right, next step. This is step 16. Use adhesive to combine one side of the fuselage with the inner structure. I'll go with the side they're showing on the screen. Now that will slide through there. Right, so when that fuselage side is on, you'll notice that all the servos should line up in their slots, or at least the aileron, elevator and rudder. I've just explained to you that I've changed the aileron and rudder servo, and look at that, I've put it in back to front. So I'm just going to swap it out. It was a little bit tricky because of the magnet catch was in the way a bit, but that's a nice way of checking things are correct. Right, so there we are. It pays to check that all servos line up with their respective slots. That's better, it's right in the middle now. Line up lovely. So I've got a glue rad on there. So to get the right angle for this, these wooden pegs go flush with the bottom of the fuselage there, so that's just there, that's where they go. And then the bottom plate is got little indents that fit around these plywood pins, if you like. So, and that will set it up pretty much, looking at it, pretty much parallel with this crease. Okay, so have a look at, see what you're going to need to glue, and then we'll put it on. A bit down there. It does string as well, so be careful with that. I'm just going to spread that around there, get it nice and even. Okay, and we just slide this on. I'm being careful of this because I've caught it once and it's given it a little bit of a... Right, there we go. Just put it down flush with the bottom there like that. Move along, make sure it's stuck. And while that is setting, I'm checking that everything is, I'm happy with it. All the wires are out of the way. Next step is all the foam parts that go inside the fuselage, basically the formers. I think I lost a bit of video there. Let me just go back a step. So I've stuck on the components. That the bottom piece first to get the angle, and I put a bit of glue on the join, the fold there, and glued the headrest in. Then I glued this little piece in, which is the sort of cockpit floor, followed by the top of the fuselage. And I tried to push it across a little bit because it seems to be a little bit short on that edge, but we'll see what happens when I put the other side on. And the nose bit, of course, I put on prior to putting that on. And now it's just stuck on the bottom piece. Just pull in the foam over the edge of the table to put a little bit of a curve into it. And you don't glue all of it, only down to the hinge line there, because that's your battery hatch and access to your two bottom servos. So I'm going to let that set, and then the next job after all that's set is to glue on this half of the fuselage side. And one other thing I've done, CA'd the cables to the battery onto the cockpit floor, or the plywood plate, so as there's no strain on the solder connections on the receiver. So I can change the battery, move it about as much as I like, but it's not going to feed back to those soldered connections. Okay, this has now had a couple of hours to set because I've been out. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to test the radar gear just one last time, just to make absolutely sure that I'm happy with the operation. Okay, rudder. Yep. Aileron. Elevator. V-track servo. Slowly going by. I'll try the engine. Okay. Alright, everything's working. It's kind of going off pretty rapidly, so it becomes a contact glue. So there's no movement in it, which isn't desirable really. Okay, here we go. Focus on the nose section. It's not too bad. It's not too bad at all actually. Maybe just that little bit there. Let's pull it in slightly. Just get another bit of tape. Okay, there we go. Let that dry and check out the next step. Combine the fuselage, step 23. Step 24, remove the propeller and apply the fuselage stickers. Right. So you got that retainer, then you've got a plastic washer, a brass washer, the propeller and the gear. So it came off quite well, didn't it? I think this top edge is slightly above that. I'm just going to give that a little sand. Ideal. Funny how they've got the roundels printed, but that's not part of the sticker itself. Okay, will it actually line up the other side? This is the question. Goodness me, that is almost absolutely spot on. Look at that. Oh, I'm impressed with that. The corner of that A, alright, corner of that A is a little bit down, but the D and the V is pretty good. Maybe the cockpit will cover that up. Okay, well that went well. Let's do the next piece. Full of confidence. I could do the long piece, or I could do the seat and seat belts. Let's try the seat and seat belts. there's a panel line there to line up, and there. Pretty much the only thing I have to line up with is those two slots, which it does to perfection. That's what we like to see. And now open that up, stick that down. This curls around the inside, but not until you've installed the second magnet. So let's just get that out. Okay, now important, very important, you've got to make sure the magnet is opposing poles to the one it's going to stick to. Easiest way to do that is just drop it on there. And once you know which way round it goes, then you can stick it in. Glue in there. I know it's got the sticky there as well, but I'm going to glue it like that. Then you bring that over the top and stick it in so the magnet can't come out, stuck in both sides. Test it. Yep, it's the right way around. Gives me just enough time to pull it all apart in case it wasn't, but it is. You'd be amazed how well that hinge lasts. I've never had one break off yet. And it's beefed up by the plastic anyway. So there we are. That's that in. Close that up. There is something you can do there actually, because it's a little bit tricky to open. You're not going to have a nice sharp scalpel with you in the field. What you can do to get a bit of grey in this case, probably guess what I'm going to do now. I'm going to slice it there, I'm going to slice it there, I'm going to cut the white off. Well, stick it on there then. So I've got a tab and it's grey, so I just get hold of the tab, pull it off, and it's stuck firmly. I'm going to go over it with little bits of white glue on a pin just to hold everything down, and also in this case a bit of dark grey felt tip like there, these white bits, that little white bit, and just get it looking really nice. Now the air intake components are that one which I had out just now. These two grey ones are already coloured here. At the bottom, air intake. Right, now these have to have a bit of a curvature on them. The same both sides. So just give them a good old curve like that. That one there, mirror image. So it's got to be in from the edge and just a little bit centered, but not self-centered. You can also lick your fingers if you want to stop the glue sticking to your fingers. Can work quite well. It's a good scale detail, that, isn't it? So there'll be a sticker to go on top of that in a moment when that's dry a bit. Install the tail wheel in the corresponding slot on the bottom of the aircraft. Arm and this little bracket bit are wood, so don't like that, so I'm going to colour them in. How about that for a tail wheel? Looks realistic. I might knock that off, so what I'm going to do is to actually leave it off for now. And put it in as one of the final pieces. That looks pretty smart. It just goes like that. But there's a panel line there, didn't notice. Oh, now here comes the fun part, the canopy. front off up to there. So if I cut at an angle, right, what I've done, I've cut the front and the back of the canopy out so as I can sit it on the fuselage and see what needs to come off on the sides. Taking it off crudely, offer it up. It's not bad. I think I'm just going to stick with, pardon the pun, the glue that they should have supplied, and that is the polystyrene glue. A little bit along the front here, and then down at an angle. It's a one fit job. Yeah, I think I'll have to put the masking tape on now because it does pull away slightly in a couple of areas. It's not too bad. We'll let that set, guys, and let's actually do the propeller now. We'll put the stickers on later on when it's set. Install the prop and spinner. Use a small amount of glue to secure the spinner. Round it up again. So we'll leave that off for a minute, and I'll do that later. Next step is the tail feathers. Starting with the tail plane itself. Right, using their little screwdriver, we score the hinge line of the rudder and the elevator like that. Okay. The only thing is it's a slightly different coloured grey, but still. Tiny bit in the back. Do it on that side. Here we go. We'll let that set for a few minutes, then come back to it, and then we can stick that onto the model. If you haven't got any sandpaper, a really useful tool to use is a nail file, especially one with two different grits on it, just to take off that where it came out of the sprue. Okay, kick your little screwdriver. Underneath the wing you'll see a score line. I'm going to run that down very gently on the tip and then a little bit deeper all the way down. That's going to form the aerofoil. And also we need to do the aileron. So you've got 4 carbon rods here. In fact, you've got 5 carbon rods. Certainly a couple of 4 push rods, so don't lose them. That's going to go in there for strength, added strength. We need to glue this into there, and you'll find that once you glue it in, the aerofoil doesn't bend easily because you've glued something into the gap. So if you make the gap a little bit bigger, a decent amount of, be careful you don't go crazy because you can go right through and then score the upper surface. It's only a very thin plastic covering. So we're going to glue that in there like that. Now these can be a little bit, you don't want to get loads of glue in it. So what I'm going to do is just put a little bit here. Now before I do, I just want to see where it comes as regards to the dihedral brace. I'm going to glue in. There's a little tip for you. If it won't go in the slot, just squeeze the foam down like that. It will expand back up again. But by the time it does that, you've got it in. Yeah. Okay, so the dihedral brace is directly on top of the spar that we're going to glue in, which is good to know because it means I can put maybe a little bit more glue on the bottom end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put glue here and then put glue on there so I can put a controlled amount in and then just drop that. I can hold this because it's not, won't be gluey. Cleverly, just follow that there as well. Now turn that around to face the wing. Okay, I'll lick my finger in that way. It won't stick to me too much. So there we are. Quite a bit of glue at the bottom there, but I say that won't matter. Let's do the other one as well. So that's just up near the top of the roundel. A little squeeze. Nail to push it in. Actually, we don't put the wings on till we put the tail on. No, we can actually, because the wings can't change their position because they're fixed against the dihedral brace. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run some glue along here on the tabs and on the top of the dihedral brace. Start with that, shall we? Okay, give the wing a little bend and slip it in there like that. Bend it around, make sure you're fully in, and I'm squeezing the dihedral brace against the wing here. Something else you could have done actually was to colour that dihedral brace before I put it on. Even black would have looked better than that. Too late now, but not too late for you, so you can do that. Just colour that in a bit. Don't like any glue on top of the wing, just wipe it off now before it becomes a problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the back end in first, like that, and then bend it over the main spar and push it into the holes like that. Turn it over and squeeze it onto that dihedral brace. Okay, it's essential that you look down the back of the fuselage and make sure that that tailplane is lined up perfectly with the wings. Let's put that right over there for a minute and take a look at the wheels. Yes, so pop out the wheels. I'm just going to take off those little burrs. If we take a pin, we put that on a pin, put that on a pin, and then I can glue them together and those holes will line up very accurately indeed. Because you want the holes to line up pretty much, because you won't get your brass axle sleeve in if you don't. So let's just push that on, push them together. Now the axle sleeves, I'm going to get a fine pin because I lost one once, and I figure if I slide one on a pin like that, I can't lose it. And just push the, look at that, this is good, look at this, I can just push it in by pushing the head of the pin, look at that. And that is how you get an axle in, look at that. So they'll glue on there, like that. Oops. I think it probably takes just as long to make up the radio gear install on the clutch as it does to assemble a whole aeroplane. Okay, there's the wheels. Now they're suggesting, excuse me, they're suggesting the next thing, part 51, retract the components. Get out the retract components. The left and right landing gear bases are not symmetrical in design and cannot be interchanged. Please pay attention to this differentiation. So it goes in there like that. Now I tell you what, if I'm going to glue those in, I'm going to make sure there's no grease on there and it will actually stick. It goes in there and turns. Goes in there and it doesn't come out the other side, so that sets the depth. So I'm going to glue that in there, and I'm going to use just sticker as a little reservoir. I'm going to soak that on there like that and push it in, and that glues like that. Yeah. Like that. That's making constant reference to the instructions. Okay. Adjust the tightness between to ensure the retract moves freely. It does. As you can see, it's not falling, but it's moving freely. So I'm going to put a little blob of super glue on that nut. If you haven't got a capillary, make a little pool and use a pin. Let's just assemble the other one while that runs around. The other one faces this way and that goes in there. That's exciting, isn't it? Retracts. Slightly more, we'll see. That's fine, won't come off. It turns okay. There we go. It's nice and easy. This sits and it's positioned using a positioning piece, that one there. It's very clever, it just goes in that corner like that, and that is where this glues, and that is the correct one. Yep. So I'm going to glue that in there like that, and then remove the polystyrene. And then you bend this undercarriage leg back a bit to line up with the shadow. But I'll tell you what, why not bend it first? Because that's going to put a lot of strain on that little joint. Okay. Now I did sand that, and I think I might just use the pin. I'm going to put some pinholes in the wing where this fits, just to get a bit more purchase for the glue. Okay, that worked well. Do that one. Give it a squeeze, and shuffle. They are handed. This one appears to be back to front, but it's not, because they both slope forward. Even though the thing looks back to front, it's not. That one might need to be adjusted slightly to bend forward a bit, but we'll let that set. That really does need to be set properly, so we'll let that one go and we'll come back to it in a while. I've just ran a bit of hot water over the spinner and it's rounded up quite nicely, so I'm thinking I might be able to squeeze it on while the undercarriage sets. So glue it on. Or I think I might use this glue, because if I ever need to take it off, this is going to be easier to detach. I'm going to do the cockpit glazing bars now. Right, here we go. So this is the front of the cockpit. That's got it. That's probably just a case of pushing this down and around like that. On that side. Okay, well that was pretty painless, wasn't it? Like that. Not too bad, I suppose, considering. If it springs off again, I can always put a tiny little bit of C8 under the corner using a pin, but that's not too bad. Better than I thought it would be. Looks like I've got to adjust the landing gear servo to the open position and install the landing gear strut. If installation is challenging, the servo arm can be detached. Oh dear. I could, I suppose, stick in the tail wheel while it's upside down now. Install the other end of the strut into the landing gear retract mechanism, matching it with the inner part. Utilise the elasticity of the nylon material. Slightly bend the base limit tag to facilitate base limit tag. If I adjust this so as it opens, if I open this up, it'll push it further up, but then it won't go all the way down because it'll be too short or too long, but it won't work. I just need more servo throw. That, you get those little reinforcement slots. Make sure you get them the right way round because they aren't. They're not equal both sides. It goes round and over the wheel like that. Okay, that's both of the doors on. So there we go, guys. The Spitfire's finished. Just got to edit the video now, and just switch the motor on. And give it a test flight. There's the undercarriage. Flops away. A little addendum, guys. On the, I'll show you on the instructions that they've got a 180 milliamp hour battery, which is shorter, and this is a much shorter battery than the one supplied. So it does go in and it stays clear of the control arm as it swings around. It also helps with the CG. The CG now is pretty much just in front of the main spar, so it's a much lighter battery. So I've changed the arm in the middle. It gives me more throw. So now it locks down quite nicely and goes up quite nicely, but you've got to set it really well. You've got to, everything has to be adjusted just so. So up to you if you want to try it. Bit fiddly getting it in. What I did, I connected this side, leaving it loose, connected this side, connected that side, and then put it back in here. little bit fiddly, but it worked okay. So now I've got it working quite nice. They lock down without dropping and go up quite nicely. So as I say, it's up to you if you want to try that. Well, you can see I've had to bend that arm in quite a lot, otherwise it'll be stalling. I'm sure if you set them up absolutely precisely, they work okay, because it's a very clever design. I just needed to have a bit more throw. I'm not sure this servo's travelling the full amount actually, so that could be a possible reason. That one flops a little bit, doesn't it? But it is locked in, that's the thing. So there we go. Cheers.